All right, everyone, we have breaking news. I thought that the news of the day was going to be going to the Mermaid Parade on Coney Island, but apparently Donald Trump had different things in mind. He appeared just now, within the last 20 minutes, actually, as I'm making this video, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, with Pete Hegseth as well, and J.D. Vance, in order to announce that the United States has conducted strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities with B-2 bombers. Yeah, they dropped bunker busters on them, and that softens them up real good. And then I believe they dropped mother of all bombs on them thereafter. So those facilities are effectively at this point, due to the shock wave, they'll be kaput. There's not going to be a whole lot left down below. Now, thankfully, the number of human casualties is probably pretty low because these facilities had already been bombed, had already been damaged. So here's good news number one. The number of human casualties is probably on a fairly low order of magnitude. I don't want any human casualties, and I absolutely excoriate war in general. But if it's more limited, I mean, it's better if one person dies than if 1,000 people die. I think that most of us, if we're being honest, would agree with that. That being said, there's also some bad news. This brings us onto the brink of war with Iran. Now, Iran has been exposed as effectively a bit of a paper tiger. Their ability to retaliate against Israel was, relatively limited, and their ability to retaliate against our strikes apparently effectively non-existent. I don't think that there was a single U.S. casualty in the course of these operations. Those are the good news. The bad news is, again, it brings us closer to a possible regional war. Out of principle, I still have to oppose this. And that's because when I think about it, how does this make me measurably more safe than I was 24 hours ago? Does it make me more safe, the fact that the United States decided to bomb the Iranians? No. In fact, one of the reasons that I voted for Donald Trump, this is not what I voted for, Big Don, sorry, um, in 2016 was because it looked like Hillary was preparing to do effectively the same thing. So I'm a little bit upset, actually, at the moment. All I wanted to do was go and see a crazy parade where, half of the people that are watching are drunk or high. Trust me, you can smell a lot of weed on Coney Island. Just saying. That's what I wanted to do today. Instead, I come back and it's like everyone's like flying around, trying to analyze the news because, they've hauled off and literally attacked the Iranians. Now, Trump is saying that if Iran is willing to negotiate, and this is his strategy, by the way, that there won't be any further problems. If they don't, there will be further problems, which probably means, hey, the rest of those facilities out there, they're pretty vulnerable because apparently you don't have any anti-air capabilities capable of dealing with a B-2 stealth bomber. I think that he's effectively trying to mafioso them at this moment. That is a dangerous game. It could work. It could work absolutely perfectly. Iran says, okay, either we're going to lose half of our military or we're going to have to belly up to the bar. That's the hope. The hope is that sanity prevails and negotiations break out. The problem is that that might not actually happen. The problem is that you could get a situation, as I've explained before, where other people get involved. And that would be potentially deadly because there are other nations in the world that have technology that is at least reasonably on par with ours and could actually potentially cause us to face a threat on the battlefield. They may not have the B-2, which is the only plane, I guess, apparently in the world that can drop one of these things. They may not have the toys that make the noise on the same level as us, but they could potentially pose a threat to Americans in the region, potentially pose a threat to our troops, and so forth. And of course, as principle, I am simply anti-war. I believe in beefing up the domestic militia, arming it as well as possible, have a beefy military, but don't use it very much. Yeah, okay. Regarding shipping lanes, stuff like that. That's fine. That's fine. Literally, again, the bad pirates, those are the ones that you want to target. The good pirates like me just go to parades, apparently. That being said, though, I can understand the rationale, but I have to condemn it. I cannot support it because Donald Trump ran once again on a platform of wanting to be a peacemaker. Making your point and trying to force peace makes sense in a pragmatic fashion, but people still died in these strikes. They're actual human beings, believe it or not. Yes, Iranians are human beings. Some people may not quite understand that. So I still can't fully support it. I will mince words slightly because at least I can understand the rationale, but beyond that, really, I don't think that this was a good idea. I also don't think that it's actually going to help bring peace to the region. I don't think that trying to threaten the Iranians by saying, hey, we can run air superiority over your country 24/7 and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't think that's going to be helpful, and there's one glaring reason why. And I don't know if Hegseth, Trump, Vance, Rubio, all these others, I don't know if they 100% understand this. The regime was teetering on the brink of instability already. And so the nuclear program, having been damaged by the Israelis, probably was also teetering on the brink as well. Oh shit, half of our centrifuges broke. Well, that's going to set us back 5 years. That's basically what happened. The damage was already done. By getting the U.S. more directly involved in precision military strikes, what you've done is you've given a rallying cry to the hardliners in the country who will try to reabsorb the people who have begun to protest against the regime. A large number of people were and saying, screw this shit. We don't want any war. What are you doing? And just get away and let us have a new government, one that actually represents us. They were already taking those steps themselves, and now the U.S., the great Satan, death to America and all of that stuff, has gotten centrally, directly, physically involved. I don't believe that that's going to be helpful in the end. Have you knocked back their potential nuclear program 30 years? Yeah, wonderful. Now you've just made an even more painful situation in which people who otherwise probably would have risen up against the regime all of a sudden say, well, which one do I choose? The regime that I don't really like, or these foreigners from across the Atlantic Ocean who just bombed us? This is going to be used for an amazing amount of propaganda. I guarantee it. Over the next 48 hours, you're about to see a news cycle that's going to blow your mind, by the way. Oh, liberals will weigh in, conservatives will weigh in, MAGA and neocon, by the way. Neocons will say, hail Trump, yay, made a good decision. MAGA, some of them, perturbed by liberals, of course, will say, I'm done with this Trump bullshit. And then liberals, of course, will be doing the perturbing, and some of them will say, well, this is actually a good decision. And others will say, it's terrible, terrible mistake, and so forth. I'm on the side of I'm simply anti-war. I don't approve of the decision because it was unnecessary. Israel can hold its own. They've already shown that they can do that. They've been bombing these sites anyway. Why the hell did we need to get involved? I just don't understand. Makes no sense. What's Iran going to do? Throw centrifuges across the border? I don't think so. That's about all. Peace out.